I'm going to present a joint work with Alan Waters from the University of Groningen. So in this work, we consider a generic semi-definite program. So it's an optimization problem with the following form. You want to minimize the trace of Cx, where C is a fixed symmetric matrix that we call the cost matrix. And X is also a symmetric matrix, it's the unknown. And it must be positive semi-definite. And it must satisfy a set of M affine constraints defined by the equation A of X equal to B for some fixed and known linear operator A and some also fixed vector B in Rm. Semi-definite programs are now very classical in optimization. It has been shown in the last decade that many a priori difficult, possibly a priori NP-hard problems, combinatorial optimization problems, could be approximated by semi-definite programs with a suitable change of variables, and that the resulting semi-definite programs could actually solve the original problem or provide a good approximation for the solution. So I will not, of course, give a list of all applications of semi-definite programming. I will just spend a few instances on a particularly important example, because I will come back to this example at the end of the talk. So a special category of semi-definite programs that is frequently encountered is this one. It's a relaxation of max cut. So it's a problem with this form. You want to minimize so it's the same form as on the previous slide. The only difference is that the linear operator A is now the diagonal operator. So it's the operator that extracts the diagonal coefficients of a matrix. And so the corresponding program is that you want to minimize the trace of Cx for some fixed C under the constraint that X is a positive matrix with diagonal equal to 1. So all the coefficients on the diagonal must be 1. So this problem has been introduced as a relaxation of the maximum cut problem from graph theory, but it also appears in inverse problems like phase retrieval or Z2 synchronization. And as many of you probably know, as semi-definite programs are convex, they can be solved in polynomial time. Nevertheless, in full generality, they are a bit difficult to solve. For instance, if you consider interior point solvers, they require, when the size of the matrix n and the number of linear constraints m are of the same order, interior point solvers, they require a complexity that is of the order of n power 4 per iteration, n power 4 operations per iteration. So you can also try to apply first-order solvers to a smoothed version of the problem. Then the complexity per iteration is reduced to n power 3, but then you need to do generally more iterations. You can try other algorithms, but in general, solving large dimensional semi-definite programs is difficult and is slow. So to overcome this issue, it's natural to try to exploit the structure of the problem that you want to solve. And in particular, a specific structure that has been exploited in many works is the fact that semi-definite programs tend to have a low-rank solution. So indeed, you can show using convex geometry arguments that there is always a solution whose rank, that I will denote by R optimal, is at most this quantity that is essentially equal to square root of 2m. And actually, in most applications that I'm aware of, there is often an optimal solution of the semi-definite program with much smaller rank, typically a rank that is of the order of 1. So this property can be exploited in several ways, and I will discuss only one way to exploit this property. It's what we call the Burer-Montero factorization. So this Burer-Montero factorization, it's an heuristic to speed up the solving of semi-definite programs with a low-rank solution, and it works as follows. If you assume that your program has a solution with rank R optimal, then the solution can be factorized in the sense that it can be written as X equal V transpose for some matrix V of size n by p, where n is still the size of the unknown, and p is an integer that you can choose as you want, provided that it's larger than the optimal rank. This means that in your semi-definite program, you can replace the unknown X by all matrices. Instead of looking over all X's, you can look over all matrices of the form V transpose, and you can try to optimize over V instead of optimizing over X. So if you do that, this is what you get. So at the top, you have the original semi-definite program, and at the bottom, you have the same program where you have replaced X with V transpose. And you observe that the constraint that X must be positive semi-definite disappears because a matrix of the form V transpose is always positive semi-definite. And so before I go on, let me insist on two things. So first, provided that P is higher than the rank of the solution of the original program, then these two problems are equivalent. The minimal value is the same, and if you can solve the second program, then you can recover a solution of the initial problem. And the second thing that I want to insist on is the fact that the integer p that is here is something, so it's an integer that we call the factorization rank, and it's something that must be chosen. It must be at least as large as the rank of the solution of the semi-definite program, but it can be equal to this rank or larger, depending on how you want your program to behave, your problem to behave. So now if you consider the factorized version of your semi-definite program, so the one that I've introduced on the previous slide, and if you assume that the set of feasible matrices V, so the set of matrices V for which A of V transpose is equal to B is a sufficiently regular manifold, then you can try to solve this problem using Riemannian optimization algorithms. And so there is a whole variety of Riemannian optimization algorithms that have been developed. And the main advantage of using one of those is that since now you have only NP unknowns, so the matrix V has size n by P, and P can be potentially much smaller than n, you have, compared to the initial formulation of the problem, you have reduced the number of variables a lot, and so you can use iterative algorithms with a much cheaper computational cost per iteration. But of course, there is one drawback with this formulation, is that the original semi-definite program was convex, and the factorized version is not convex. So when you try to use a local optimization algorithm, it's possible that you won't find the solution of your problem. Possibly you will get stuck at a critical point, and you will not find the global minimizer of the problem. And so this issue can arise, but it can also not arise. And this depends on the integer p, the factorization rank. So this leads to the question, how do you choose p? As small as possible, of course, because you want the number of unknown coefficients in V to be as small as possible, but such that Riemannian optimization algorithms have a chance to work on your factorized problem. So this is a question that I'm going to discuss in this talk, and I will start with a description of the literature. So we'll see that in practice, it seems that in a lot of situations, Riemannian optimization algorithms work as soon as the factorization rank is of the order of the optimal rank, possibly slightly larger. And in very specific situations, we have a theoretical understanding of this situation. However, in a general setting, there are no guarantees when the factorization rank p is smaller than square root of 2m, where I recall that m is a number of affine constraints. And so, since the optimal rank can be much smaller than square root of 2m and is often much smaller in applications, there is a gap between numerical experiments and the theoretical understanding that we have in specific situations and the general guarantees. And so I will ask the question, why is this gap? Is it a problem in the general theory, or is it a fundamental limit? And the result that I'm going to present in the second part of the talk is that it's not a limitation of the theoretical analysis. There is really a gap in the sense that, so the previous result on which factorization rank you need to ensure that Riemannian optimization algorithms work can be very slightly improved. But with this improvement, it's essentially optimal in the sense that for almost any A and B, if you take the factorization rank to be smaller than square root of 2m, then there are cost matrices for which Riemannian optimization algorithms can fail. And so it means that if you want an algorithm that is certified correct, you need to take the factorization rank at least equal to square root of 2m. Or you need to have some assumptions on the cost matrix. And I will conclude with open questions. So let's start with the literature review. So the Buehrer-Montero factorization has been introduced by Buehrer and Montero in an article in 2003. And in this article, Buehrer and Montero performed various numerical simulations. And in their experiments, they only use a factorization rank equal to square root of 2m. They do not test smaller values of p, but they observe that with p equal to square root of 2m, their Riemannian optimization algorithms, they work, in the sense that they always find a global minimizer of the factorized problem. Sorry. Then, in an article by Journet, Bach, Absil, and Sepulcre, in 2010, you can find another set of experiments on semi-definite programs that are instances of max-cut relaxations. And on this set of experiments, the authors find that provided that P is larger than the optimal rank, then Riemannian optimization algorithms work. Nicolas Boumal has also done experiments on semi-definite programs coming from what is called orthogonal synchronization problems. And in this setting, the optimal rank is 3, and Nicolas Boumal observed that provided that you take the factorization rank P to be equal to 4 or 5, Riemannian optimization algorithms work. And there has also been other results on problems that are not exactly semi-definite programs because the cost function is not linear, but you obtain essentially the same type of observations. So numerically, it seems that provided that the factorization rank P is slightly larger than the optimal rank, then the factorized problem can be solved with Riemannian optimization algorithms. And in specific settings, this can be theoretically explained. So the main setting is due to Bandera, Boumal, and Voroninski. They studied semi-definite programs coming from inverse problems that are called Z2 synchronization and community detection. And so under very specific statistical assumptions on the underlying inverse problems, they could show that with high probability, the semi-definite programs that they obtained had an optimal solution with rank 1, and they could prove that the corresponding Burer-Montero factorization could be solved with Riemannian optimization algorithms if the factorization rank P was equal to 2. And there have been similar results on not exactly semi-definite programs, but problems that look like it. And similar results have been obtained, typically under very rather strong assumptions. For various classes of problems, you can show that if you factorize with a rank that is at least as large as the rank of the optimal solution, then Riemannian optimization algorithms work. But this only applies to specific settings. And if you make no assumption on C, A, and B, there is essentially only one result that can provide you guarantees for the Burer-Montero factorization. So this result is due to Boumal, Voroninski, and Bandera. And so this result assumes, as I'm doing since the beginning of the talk, that the set of matrices V that satisfy the quadratic constraints A of V transpose equal to B is a smooth manifold. Actually, they assume a slightly more technical condition, so they assume that at any feasible V, this map is surjective, more or less. So this is a technical condition that ensures that the tangent of the feasible manifold is what you expect it to be, but it's not important for the rest of the talk. In this setting, we know that suitable Riemannian optimization algorithms, although they may not converge to a global minimum of the problem that they are applied to, they are at least guaranteed in the limit to find a second-order critical point, which means that if you run a suitable Riemannian optimization algorithm, you will find a matrix V0 that belongs to your feasible manifold MP, and for which the gradient of the cost function is 0. So the cost function here, it's just the function that to V associates the trace of CVV transpose. So you'll find a matrix at which the cost function has zero gradient, and where the Hessian of the cost function is positive semi-definite. And Boumal, Voroninski, and Bandera have managed to show that provided that you take P to be larger than this quantity, that is essentially equal to square root of 2m, then all second-order critical points of the factorized problem are global minimizers of this problem. So since suitable Riemannian optimization algorithms find second-order critical points, then they are guaranteed to find a global minimizer of the problem. And you observe that in this result, the value of the factorization rank P is independent from the rank of the optimal solution of the original semi-definite program. So whether the optimal rank is 1 or of the order of square root of m, it makes no difference in the theorem. So to summarize, we've seen that in numerical experiments, as well as in the few theoretical situations that could be theoretically studied, the Burer-Monteiro factorization has no second-order critical point as soon as P is of the order of the optimal rank. But the results that I've just stated that applies to generic semi-definite programs only guarantees that this happens when P is larger than square root of 2m. So since the optimal rank is usually of the order of 1 in many applications, and since m, on the contrary, is much bigger than 1, there is a big gap between the specific settings and the general guarantees that we have. Of course, there is a natural question that is it possible to obtain general guarantees for P much smaller than square root of 2m? And so what we are going to see is that no, it's not possible. So you can slightly improve the results by Boumal, Voroninsky, and Bandera, but it's only a very slight improvement. It does not change the leading order of square root of 2m. And with this improvement, the result is essentially optimal, even if you assume that the optimal rank is much smaller than square root of 2m. In the sense that if the factorization rank is smaller than square root of 2m, then you cannot guarantee that second-order critical points are global minima. There are cost matrices C for which this is not true. So the improvement over the previous theorem that I was mentioning is as follows. Under hypotheses that are a bit stronger than in the previous result, but still very reasonable, you can show that when P is larger than this, then all second-order critical points of the factorized problem are global minimizers for almost all cost matrices C. So this is a bit better than in the result by Boumal, Voroninsky, and Bandera, because you can check that this quantity is smaller than the one that they had. But actually, the difference between the two quantities is generally 1, so it's not a big improvement. That's clear. And nevertheless, we can show that this result is essentially optimal. So let's define R0 to be the smallest possible rank of a matrix X that satisfies the affine constraints and is positive semi-definite. So it's the smallest rank of a matrix in the feasible set of the original semi-definite problem. And so for this A and B, that can be anything, under suitable hypotheses that I'm going to discuss next, but that are very reasonable, if P is smaller than this, then you can show that there exists a set of cost matrices C that has non-zero Lebesgue measure and for which the corresponding semi-definite programs, they have an optimal solution with rank R0, but the factorized problem has second-order critical points that are not global minimizers. Hence, you cannot guarantee that Riemannian optimization algorithms, when you run them on your factorized problem, will work. And So to explain a bit further this result, I must precise that R0 in all reasonable examples is small. Typically, R0 can be 1. So this quantity is essentially square root of 2m. So this means that we have the following picture. When you take the factorization rank to be larger than this quantity, there are no bad second-order critical points, and Riemannian optimization, suitable Riemannian optimization algorithms are guaranteed to work. However, when you take P to be smaller than this quantity, then it's not possible to certify that Riemannian optimization algorithm will work unless you have some assumptions on the cost matrix C. And in between you don't know, but the in between is small because you can see that it's smaller than R0 minus 1, and since R0 is typically of the order of 1, this is small. So just a technical comment. I said that the theorem is valid under suitable hypothesis. So the main hypothesis is as follows. It's technical. It does not have a clear interpretation. It just comes out of the proof. So it's that there must exist matrices U0, U0 transpose, and VV transpose that satisfy the affine constraints. So where U0 has R0 columns and V has P columns, such that this complicated linear map is injective. So as I said, it's not a very intuitive condition. However, we observe that the linear map, it's a map between two vector spaces where the dimension of the second vector space is at least as large as the dimension of the first one, which means that you expect that generically the map will be injective, and indeed in almost all the examples that we considered, except in very specific settings, this map, I mean, you can always find U0 and V such that this map is injective. So the hypothesis, although a bit complicated, is not a serious restriction. To give you an example, let's apply the theorem to semi-definite programs that arise as instances of max-cut relaxations. So I recall you that these programs, they have the following form. You want to minimize the trace of Cx under the constraint that x is positive and its diagonal contains only ones. When you factorize, you get the program minimize the trace of CVV transpose such that the diagonal of VV transpose is equal to 1, which is, so this condition is equivalent to the fact that each row of V has norm 1. So it's easy to see that the feasible set of the factorized problem is a nice manifold. It's a product of spheres. In this case, the integer R0 that appeared in the theorem is exactly 1. You can see that the hypotheses I've mentioned are satisfied. And so the two theorems that I've stated give you the following results. For almost all cost matrices C, provided that you take P to be strictly larger than this quantity, then the factorized problem has no bad second-order critical points. So Riemannian optimization algorithms will work. And if you take P to be smaller than the same quantity, then even if you restrict yourself to instances of max-cut relaxations that admit a rank 1 solution, it's not guaranteed that Riemannian optimization algorithm will work. There exist cost matrices C in a set that has non-zero Lebesgue measure for which bad second-order critical points exist. So to summarize what we've seen that in specific settings under strong statistical assumptions, so this was the literature part, it's sometimes possible to guarantee that Bureau-Montero factorizations can be solved with Riemannian optimization algorithms, provided that the factorization rank is of the order of the optimal rank R opt. But we've seen that in the most general setting, it's not possible to obtain such a result for factorization ranks that are smaller than square root of 2m, even if you assume that the optimal rank is 1. Nevertheless, in most numerical experiments, even in experiments that are not done in the specific settings that could be theoretically studied, it's usually observed that the Bureau-Montero factorization can be easily solved, provided that the factorization rank is slightly higher than the optimal rank R opt. So this suggests, of course, that the matrices C that we've constructed and for which bad second-order critical points exist when the factorization rank is of the order of square root of 2m, but the optimal solution has a very small rank. These cost matrices, they are somewhat pathological. They exist. So if you want to have certified algorithms, they are an obstacle, but in practice, you don't encounter them. As a consequence, you can ask the following questions to try to understand a bit better how pathological these matrices are. So first, we could, but this will be future work, you can try maybe to compute the volume of these problematic cost matrices in the space of all cost matrices as a function of n and p. So this will not give any strong guarantee on programs that appear in applications, but this will at least give an idea of, depending on how you choose n and p, how unlucky you must be to find a cost matrix C for which, if you run a Riemannian optimization problem on your factorized form, you will have a problem. So this is the first question. And the second one is it possible to develop guarantees for the Bureau-Montero factorization to work with slight assumptions on C? Because for the moment, we have very strong guarantees with very specific assumptions on C. And we have poor guarantees, so P of the order of square root of 2m for general C. And I'm asking, is there an intermediate regime where you have guarantees that are not excellent but that are good, and you have assumptions on C that are not as specific as in the previous settings that could be studied? So this is all, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Is there any question in the room?
Thank you for your talk. I have a question that might be stupid because I'm not an expert, but what I didn't get is, are you sure that all the second order critical points are going to be, can be reached by a Riemannian algorithm? Because maybe there are bad critical points like that and good critical points like that, and you always end up in the good ones. Is it possible?
So this depends on how you initialize your optimization algorithm. If you have a specific initialization scheme, maybe not. Maybe you will not encounter the second order critical points. But if you have no assumption on how you initialize your Riemannian algorithm, then no, the second order critical points that we've constructed, they can be reached. So they have a basin of attraction in the space of all feasible matrices V. So if you initialize your optimization algorithm in this basin of attraction, then you will converge to the bad second order critical point that we've constructed.
So if I well understand, and if I don't have any problem of computational cost or computational storage, I can totally explode the dimension of my problem to factorize my matrix into an n by n times an n by n matrix.
Yes?
And then I will still recover a low rank solution.
Yes.
Okay. So the next question will be that can you do like a more restrictive assumption on your optimization path? Because there is this idea that in the optimization scheme that you use, you have an implicit bias that can capture sometimes some features. I mean, if you think about interior points method, you're not going to have the sparsest solution to your problem. So maybe there is a kind of a similar idea in the SDP programs, or not at all?
So you mean when you run a Riemannian optimization algorithm on the factorized form, does the point that you end at have specific properties like non-sparsity of something?
Here low rank. I mean, could you specify maybe an a particular optimization scheme just to capture this?
So the optimization schemes that I think of are so variants of gradient descent or second order methods like Riemannian trusted region methods. So what has been proved is that these algorithms, they will find either the global minimum or a solution with full rank. So a solution with rank P, the factorization rank. So this is one property. But I don't think this, I mean, this can, so the critical points that we, the bad critical points that we construct, they precisely have rank P, so it doesn't, yeah, I mean, you don't avoid them using this property.
Okay.
Maybe,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
So could you say a few words about the proof? In particular, is it constructive about... Yeah, I read in your mind. Can you exhibit bad matrices and what do they look like?
Yes, so the proof is constructive. So the principle of the proof is that we explicitly write in terms of C and A what it means to be a second order critical point and what it means to be an optimal solution of the original SDP problem. And so then, if we fix x0 and v, we get a condition on C, on the cost matrix C, so we get conditions on C so that C satisfies the following properties. X0 is an optimal solution of the semi-definite program, and V is a bad second order critical point. And these conditions are rather complicated, but we can simplify them progressively and construct a C under the hypothesis that I've mentioned. So the proof is constructive. In practice, I've constructed some matrices C for small problems. They tend to be very pathological, as I mentioned. So they are very specific. They have a very weird repartition of singular values. So some singular values are much higher than the other ones. But I haven't done like yes, for max cut problems, yes. But I haven't done exhaustive experiments, so maybe there are. It's possible to construct problematic matrices that look a bit more reasonable.
Someone else?
Thank you for the very nice talk. I have a question about the dependence of your set of bad matrices on the operator A. Does it depend on A or is it independent of A?
It depends on A, yes. Yes, it depends on A because so the set of feasible points already depends on A. So our construction depends on the matrix that we choose to be a bad second order critical point, and this matrix, since it must be in the feasible set, it depends on A, because the feasible set depends on A. But the theorem is valid for all A's, under rather general assumptions.
Okay, so for every A, there's a set of bad matrices.
Yes. Yes, that's it.
Someone else? No? So thank you again.